And this right here is Professor Hamato interviewing Lauren Moret right here.
Who's at the very top? Who really rules the world? And I discovered it's a very, very interesting history of ancient Iranian tribes, the original Zoroastrians, and the First World Persian Empire that has controlled the world for the last 5,000 years.
So when she says ancient Iranian tribes, she means Aryans. Persian is an ethnic group that makes up about 60% of the modern nation of Iran, and the first Persian Empire dates to about 500 BC, founded by Cyrus the Great. And the nobility would have been comprised of people with Aryan ancestry, but actual Aryans existed 5,000 years ago, which is illustrated in this linguistics graph. We can see that Aryans are also referred to as Proto-Indo-Europeans, as opposed to modern Persian or Farsi, which is here, or Hindi, a language spoken in modern India, which is here, or English, the language I'm speaking now, which is here. They're all in the Aryan language family, but actual Aryans were 5,000 years ago and extinct in its original form. The closest or first branch would probably be the Hittites, which is here, and the next closest would probably be the Tocharians, which is here. So with that understanding, let us continue.
Confucius said, "Signs and symbols rule the world, not words and laws." And when I let go of that and I began trusting myself and my intuition and my experience and my insights, it changed everything. And I began looking at signs and symbols, and that's what opened all the doors. It's all right in front of us. It's there for everyone to see, but they don't know how to integrate, to relate, to put together the information to tell the real story.
Mm-hmm. I can guarantee you that this synthesis, this grand synthesis that you've managed to pull together, it's not being taught in the contemporary university.
No.
This, what we are about to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, is a paradigm buster. And the academic establishment are going to have to come in this direction.
An example of these ancient signs and symbols that are no longer taught in academia, especially since World War II, is the swastika, which is a symbol disseminated during the Holocene by Aryans, who also spread agricultural civilization, domesticated animals, Indo-European languages, which we already looked at, and genetic signatures such as blue eyes, as is evident in the many statues of pharaohs and other nobility from the ancient world. Let's continue.
The interest behind the Jesuits, the entities that created the Jesuits during the Renaissance in Italy, it was none other than Alessandro Farnese, a Persian. From ancient Persia, his family came through Cappadocia in eastern Turkey, eventually to Italy, and they founded the first 10 Etruscan cities in Italy. And when those were razed, they destroyed them, and they created the Roman Empire. The Romans, the Etruscans, the Holy Roman Empire, they're all Iranians, they're all Persians, it's all Persian blood. Italians are Iranians. Their practices, their beliefs, their food, their clothing attire. The Pope, for instance, wears a papal tiara dome, the papal dome, which is called the papal tiara. Well, that's what men in charge of tribes in Central Asia wear. they wear those very large domed hats. And some of the women do also, if they're a leader of the community. And then the red slippers that the Pope wears, those are Central Asian slippers. You see them in India a lot and in Asia. So there are many cultural ties and legends and religious practices that indicate over and over and over again that the Italians are really Iranians. And Romania was named for the Roman soldiers, the Iranian equestrian nomadic fighters, warriors were brought to Romania, to Eastern Europe, and they were the soldiers, the Roman soldiers for the Roman Empire. So you see this fingerprint of Iranian DNA everywhere. And 14,000 years ago, DNA studies of a particular Iranian tribe indicate there was a mutation in the DNA. The most extreme expression is red hair and blue eyes, light blue eyes. And then more moderate expressions are blonde hair, green eyes, hazel eyes, gray eyes. You see a lot of Afghanis with gray eyes. And so now you can walk around the Davis campus or get on a train or walk by some friends sitting on the steps of a building, and you can start talking to them, and you can tell they have Iranian blood. But it has to be from both parents. It's a recessive gene. So that really got me started. And
now, it's my understanding that Aryan came from Iranian. That's the
right.
synonym. So
That's right.
It has migrated down into our most recent history, the history of World War II,
Yes.
global depression.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing from you is that this extensive history that goes back millennia, right?
Yeah, thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
Yes.
We're witnessing I don't know if it's the end game or not, but we're witnessing the contemporary expression of this bloodline in 2016.
Yes.
And I don't know where you're going with this, but
We're talking about a global network with one template carrying all of this out. And it's originates with those ancient Iranian bloodlines. And they have 10 bloodline families that sit on a council, and they're the ones who advise the Jesuits. The Jesuits work for the Iranian bloodlines, and the Jesuits were created by Alessandro Farnese, who became Pope Paul III in the Renaissance.
The Society of Jesus, as the Jesuits are formally known, was started in the 1530s by Ignatius of Loyola. And he was a Basque soldier who compiled a series of esoteric spiritual exercises, which, when performed, they were performed by all of the male order, and there are no Jesuit sisters. So these spiritual exercises consist of mental exercises, meditations, prayers, and other practices which were designed to improve a person's spiritual vitality. Another way of expressing this spiritual or universal force is the Asian term ki or chi. In India, one might come across the word prana, which is said to be controlled through breath and posture and the various forms of yoga. Prana is the Sanskrit word for life force. Vril is another name of this life force energy that theoretically fills the universe and all living beings. Helena Blavatsky, the foundress of the Theosophical Society, described this Vril energy as an ether stream that can be transformed into a physical force. The Vril Society was a secret organization in Germany devoted to mastering this unseen force of nature They accumulated and combined the guarded alchemical knowledge of this life force that's contained in Sufism, Aryan Hindu mysticism, theosophy, Nordic and Sumerian mythology, pagan sex magic, channeled material, and the Kabbalah. According to esoteric and yogic teachings, sexual energies can be channeled, stored, and harnessed, and Tantra and Kundalini Yoga were two ancient techniques utilized by the German Vril Society. After fleeing Germany in 1933, Dr. Willy Ley, one of the world's greatest rocket experts, said, and I quote, "The Vril Society, which formed shortly before the Nazis came to power, believed that they had secret knowledge that would enable them to change their race and become equals of the men hidden in the bowels of the earth. Methods of concentration, a whole system of internal gymnastics by which they would be transformed. These methods of concentration were probably based on Ignatius Loyola's spiritual exercises. The Jesuit techniques of concentration and visualization are similar to many occult teachings, especially in shamanic cults and Tibetan Buddhism. The Nazis revered these Jesuit spiritual exercises, and they believed that they had been handed down from ancient masters of Atlantis. The occultists of the time knew that Ignatius was a Basque. Some claimed that the Basque people were the last remnant of the Atlantean race, and the proper use of these techniques would enable the reactivation of the Vril. The belief was that the world will change and the lords will emerge from the center of the earth. Unless we have made an alliance with them and become lords ourselves, we shall find ourselves amongst the slaves on the dung heap that will nourish the roots of the new cities that will arise."
They say that all roads lead to Rome, but is that true and can it be proven? The following brief history is meant to support the biblical claim that Rome would eventually dominate the entire world prior to her destruction at Christ's return. See Daniel 7. In this presentation, I will be offering substantial proof that the Roman Catholic Jesuit order is Rome's vassal for world domination, and that this covert political rule by Rome will lead into the Great Tribulation and the worldwide persecution of the saints by the Antichrist. So what do you think? Who would you say runs the world's political system? Is it the bankers, the top 1% richest men on the globe? Perhaps it's the Bilderbergers, the Illuminati, or Freemasons. If you're like me and you spent a considerable amount of time researching the subject, then no doubt you've come to understand that all roads do in fact wind their way back to Rome, and that the Vatican sits at the very top of the world's political pyramid. You probably also realize that secret societies, such as the Illuminati and Freemasons, are mere front organizations or gatekeepers controlled at their highest levels by the Jesuits, and that this can be verified from history. So you might be wondering, who are these Jesuits? You see, the Vatican has its very own secret intelligence agency that carries out its global agenda with great precision. This agency is known as the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuit Order. Believe it or not, the Roman Catholic Jesuits are the most powerful organization in the world and have come to control almost every sector of global government in the course of 500 years. So it's time we became familiar with the background and activities of the Jesuits and what marks them as the most formidable political force in world history. So here's a brief history of the Roman Catholic Jesuits and how they came to exist. In 1517, when Martin Luther tacked his 95 Theses to the door of the Wittenberg Church in Germany, he officially sparked what is now known as the Protestant Reformation. As the Reformation spread across Europe, the Roman Catholic Church suffered a severe political blow. Much of Europe became Protestant, and the popes were stripped of almost all of their power and influence. But this political setback was short-lived, because just as Protestants were gaining momentum in Europe, a formidable foe arose to oppose them, the Jesuits. Known as the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit order was founded in 1534 by Ignatius of Loyola. Its sole objective was to restore complete political power to the papacy. Later, they would seek to gain control not only over Europe but the rest of the world also. With their vows of loyalty to the Pope and their strict military-style training, The Jesuits were feared across Europe as the stormtroopers of the Roman Catholic Church. They led armies which recaptured large areas for the Catholic Vatican. Their single purpose was to destroy Protestantism by any means necessary. As a result, the Jesuits launched what would later be known as the Counter-Reformation, which brought terror and fear to many Protestant communities across Europe, who fell victim to their frequent persecution and torture. Along with their military actions, the Jesuits became involved in education and missionary expansion. And by the end of Loyola's life in 1556, there were Jesuits in Japan, Brazil, Ethiopia, and most parts of Europe. Many of the explorers of that period were accompanied by Jesuit priests, eager to bring Catholicism to new lands. Since the 1500s, the Jesuits have aggressively worked to infiltrate nearly every institution of higher education, major posts of government around the globe, and powerful business organizations in a bid to promote the Pope to total world rule. The following are some pertinent quotes from credible sources demonstrating the power and cunning craft of the Jesuit order. This war, the American Civil War, would never have been possible without the sinister influence of the Jesuits. We owe it to Popery that we now see our land reddened with the blood of her noblest sons. I pity the priests, the bishops, and the monks of Rome in the United States when the people realize that they are in great part responsible for the tears and the bloodshed in this war. 50 Years in the Church of Rome, Abraham Lincoln, in his letter to Charles Shinneke, pages 296 through 297. It is my opinion that if the liberties of this country, the United States of America, are destroyed, it will be by the subtlety of the Roman Catholic Jesuit priests, for they are the most crafty, dangerous enemies to civil and religious liberty. They have instigated most of the wars of Europe. Marquis de Lafayette, 1757 through 1834, French statesman and general, who served in the American Continental Army under the command of General George Washington during the American Revolutionary War. My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities, and is very particular and very horrible. There, the Jesuit order's restoration in 1814 is indeed a step toward darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits. If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is this Society of Ignatius de Loyola. John Adams, second President of the United States. The Jesuits are a secret society, a sort of Masonic order, with super-added features of revolting odiousness and 1,000 times more dangerous. Samuel Morse, American inventor of the telegraph, author of the book Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. The public is practically unaware of the overwhelming responsibility carried by the Vatican and its Jesuits in the starting of the two world wars, a situation which may be explained in part by the gigantic finances at the disposition of the Vatican and its Jesuits, giving them power in so many spheres, especially since the last conflict. Edmund Paris, author of the book The Secret History of the Jesuits. The Jesuits are the deadly enemies of civil and religious liberty. R.W. Thompson, ex-Secretary, American Navy. The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is a general of an army, not the mere father abbot of a monastery. And the aim of this organization is power. Power in its most despotic exercise, absolute power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man, i.e., the Black Pope, the superior general of the Jesuits. Jesuitism is the most absolute of despotisms, and at the same time the greatest and most enormous of abuses. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of France. The Jesuits are simply the Romish army for the earthly sovereignty of the world in the future, with the Pontiff of Rome for emperor. That's their ideal. It is simple lust of power, of filthy earthly gain, of domination, something like a universal serfdom with them, the Jesuits, as masters. That's all they stand for. They don't even believe in God, perhaps. Fyodor Dostoevsky, famous Russian novelist. The Society of Jesus, i.e. the Jesuit order, is the enemy of man. The whole human race should unite for its overthrow, for there is no alternative between its total extirpation and the absolute corruption and degradation of mankind. Robert Jefferson Breckinridge, who was both a politician and Presbyterian minister. If you trace up Masonry through all of its orders till you come to the grand tip-top head Mason of the world, you will discover that the dread individual and the chief of the Society of Jesus, i.e. the superior general of the Jesuit order, are one and the same person. James Pardon, American historian. The Roman Inquisition has been administered since 1542 by the Jesuits. F. Tupper Saucy, author of the book Rulers of Evil. Alas, I knew they, i.e. the Jesuits, would poison me, but I did not expect to die in so slow and cruel a manner. Pope Clement XIV, who was responsible for abolishing the Jesuit order in 1773. In Roman Catholic circles, it is well known that the Black Pope is the term used for the Superior General of the Jesuits. As the Pope is always robed in white, and the Jesuit Superior General in black, the contrast is obvious. But those Romanists who do not greatly love the Jesuits, and their number is not limited, use the term as indicating that the Black Pope rules the White Pope, even while the former, i.e. the Black Pope, is obligated to make at least a show of submission to the latter. The Jesuits are the only religious order in the Church of Rome which has lain under the ban of the White Pope, or which has been expelled from any country because of its interference in politics. Hence, we may expect to find that to obtain political power forms a main feature in the plans of the Society of Jesus, i.e. the Jesuit order. M. F. Cusack, 1896. The Jesuit Superior General is at the head of this black and mute militia, which thinks, wills, acts, obeys, as the passive instrument of his designs. Their whole life must have but one aim, the advancement of the Jesuit order to which they are attached. Jeremiah J. Crowley, ex-priest in the Roman Catholic Church and author of the book Romanism, Menace to the Nation, 1912. Never before in the course of the world's history had such a society, i.e. the Jesuit order, appeared. The old Roman Senate itself did not lay schemes for world domination with greater certainty of success. Friedrich von Hardenberg, German philosopher, 1800. The organization of the Roman Catholic hierarchy is a complete military despotism, of which the Pope is the ostensible, i.e. apparent, seeming head, but of which the Black Pope, the Superior General of the Jesuits, is the real head. The Black Pope is the head of the Order of the Jesuits and is called a general, i.e. the Superior General. He not only has command of his own order, but also directs and controls the general policy of the Roman Catholic Church. He, the Black Pope, is the power behind the throne and is the real potential head of the hierarchy. The whole machine is under the strictest rules of military discipline. The whole thought and will of this machine, to plan, purpose, and execute, is found in its head. There is no independence of thought or of action in its subordinate parts. Implicit and unquestioning obedience to the orders of superiors in authority is the sworn duty of the priesthood of every grade. Brigadier General Thomas M. Harris. Above all, I have learned from the Jesuits, and so did Lenin too. As far as I recall, the world has never known anything quite so splendid as the hierarchical structure of the Roman Catholic Church. There were quite a few things I simply appropriated from the Jesuits for the use of the Nazi Party. In Himmler, I see our Ignatius de Loyola, Adolf Hitler, Nazi leader and Chancellor of Germany from 1933 through 1945, Mein Kampf. Now, in case you didn't realize it, Mein Kampf was actually written by the Roman Catholic priest Bernhard Stempfli and signed by Hitler. The presence of the Jesuits in any country, Romanist or Protestant, is likely to breed social disturbance. Lord Palmerston. The Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels had been a student of Jesuits, and Heinrich Himmler was impressed by the order's organizational structure. Hitler wrote favorably of their influence on architecture and on himself in Mein Kampf. The Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. Robert de Harcourt of the French Academy, October 1946. The Führer had come to power thanks to the votes of the Catholic Zentrum, center party overseen by Jesuit Ludwig Cass, for it was the Society of Jesus which perfected the famous Pan-German program as laid out in this book, and the Führer endorsed it. Edmund Paris, 1965, French historian and author of The Secret History of the Jesuits. Now, what about the Illuminati and Freemasonry? Aren't they the real puppet masters behind world governments? Actually, no. You might be surprised to discover that the founder of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, was raised Roman Catholic after his Jewish parents converted to the Catholic faith, and was then educated by the Jesuits throughout his life. He later infiltrated Freemasonry and recruited from their ranks to form the Illuminati secret society. Notice these quotes by Wikipedia. Adam Weishaupt was born on February 6, 1748, in Ingolstadt, in the Electorate of Bavaria. Weishaupt began his formal education at age 7 at a Jesuit school. He later enrolled at the University of Ingolstadt and graduated in 1768 at age 20 with a doctorate of law. Wikipedia. Now, by the way, the University of Ingolstadt was fully controlled by the Jesuits in the 17th century, and this fact can easily be verified by Wikipedia also. But I want you to notice the linkage between the Illuminati and Freemasonry, which was developed by Weishaupt during his lifetime, because this will help us connect both the Illuminati and Freemasonry back to the Jesuits. So here's another excerpt from Wikipedia. Weishaupt was initiated into the Masonic Lodge at Munich in 1777. He used Freemasonry to recruit for his own quasi-Masonic society, the Illuminati. So there you have it, friends. That's how the Jesuits have come to form the Illuminati as a scapegoat or blame man for their own clandestine operations. And then through their secret agent Weishaupt, they managed to infiltrate Freemasonry so that it too could serve their own aims. Now at this point, it should be obvious that the Jesuits are masterminds at infiltrating and controlling organizations that they wish to use to forward their cause. This may also help you understand the intricate intelligence network perfected by the Jesuit order over many centuries. And in case you doubt that the Jesuits continue to exist as the Vatican's secret intelligence network, notice this interview with former CIA officer Everett Howard Hunt.
And I wouldn't presume to trace the lines of authority within the Catholic Church, how they get their information, but they do. And we've always said, in an admiring way, that the Jesuits form the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have. The Jesuits form the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have.
Now, why is all this information so important? You see, without understanding the role of the Catholic Jesuits, we will miss the significance of papal Rome and Bible prophecy. And we will also miss the importance of the new Pope currently presiding over the Catholic Church, namely Pope Francis. Because Pope Francis is not only the very first Jesuit Pope ever, but he is also the most globally active Pope in history. His fast-spreading ecumenical agenda is setting the stage for the wholesale fulfillment of Bible prophecy. So friends, it's time we wised up to Rome's modern-day role in prophecy and began to prepare both spiritually and physically for the changes to come. I pray that if you don't know Jesus Christ in a personal and intimate way, you will begin to take refuge in His provisions for salvation and redemption before it's too late. Don't wait till the final judgment plagues are upon us. Receive Jesus now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a game. This is not an academic exercise, either for Lauren or for myself.
No.
I am in their house. I am working in the belly of the beast. I have suffered, and I'm not going to talk about it too much today, the repercussions of asking certain questions about my own workplace, which is I'm entitled to do as a citizen, as a sovereign human being, as an academic, as an American. I'm entitled to do that, and I will exercise those rights to the best of my ability. But it takes research such as this, cutting-edge research such as this, that will provide us the intellectual, the historical, the analytical framework to understand what we are facing. Because so far, these people have been very good in veiling the truth and hiding it, because the Rockefellers own the University of Chicago. The Russell Trust runs Yale University. All these bloodlines control information, scholarship, and every single aspect, and sciences, of course, almost every single aspect of our lives that shape our world.
It traces back to the Jesuits. It traces back to Mesopotamia, to the Kabbalah and the Talmud, which were magic cult instruction books. And they recommended pedophilia in children, but they had to be under 8 years old.
The Kabbalah is a collection of Jewish magical texts which were given to mankind via psychic communion with a fallen angel called Raziel. Raziel is one of a pantheon of so-called fallen angels who serve the light-bringer Lucifer. The Kabbalah describes the many angels and demons who inhabit the spiritual realm. The Kabbalah gives Kabbalists a roadmap called the Tree of Life, which explains how to invoke and communicate with these powerful spirits. The magical information in the Kabbalah originates from Babylon and ancient Egypt at the time of the pharaohs, but did not reach Europe in printed form until the 11th and 12th centuries. The sacred books of the Kabbalah are just a few thousand words long, but they contain complex descriptions of a spherical Earth, parallel universes, and the atomic nature of matter, ideas which have become common doctrine amongst modern physicists and astronomers. How could such complex information be contained in a group of ancient texts barely larger than an average magazine? The answer is that the Kabbalah is written in code. Codes are used to conceal multi-layered complex information which would later be studied by medieval alchemists. Sir Isaac Newton and many leading scientists studied the rich occult sciences within the Kabbalah. There was a time when mysticism, religion, alchemy, astronomy, and astrology were studied as one Kabbalistically based tradition. Jewish physicist Albert Einstein conveyed pages and pages of complex calculations in a simple 5-symbol code. E equals mc squared. Modern-day quantum physics, chaos theory, and the notion of parallel universes can all be traced back to the original texts of the ancient Kabbalah. The higher secrets of the Kabbalah included instructions on how to kill a person with just one look. This is called the evil eye. The magical name for the evil eye is En-ha-Ra. In a wax cylinder recording made in 1921, we can hear British black magician and part-time espionage agent Aleister Crowley invoking the fallen demon angel Raziel and En-Ra-Ha, the evil eye. Since medieval times, the Jewish people have been considered a race of magicians. The biblical rabbis used shaman-type techniques to induce altered states of consciousness. Fasting, flagellation, and burying oneself up to the neck were all techniques used to prepare the rabbi-magician for a battle through the 7 portals of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, where they would eventually meet the supreme deity in a realm called the Merkaba. Ritual sex magic was also practiced amongst some Jewish cults. Many temples had holes in the walls so that rabbis could ritually sodomize a prostitute, a young man or a boy, and invoke the fallen angel Raziel as they reached sexual climax. The word sodomy is derived from the name of the biblical city of Sodom, in which sex magic and also blood sacrifice were widely practiced. A strange version of vampirism, or blood drinking, is still practiced to this day by many rabbis, who suck the blood from the freshly severed foreskin of newborn babies. Much of the ritual we see in the modern-day Catholic Church, such as the symbolic eating the flesh of Christ and the symbolic drinking of his blood, are derived from ancient Jewish rituals in which different forms of vampirism and blood sacrifice were an accepted part of this occult tradition. After all, the Pope does wear a Jewish yarmulke. The collection of texts called the Kabbalah were eventually transcribed by Rabbi Isaac the Blind in Provence in the south of France during the 12th century. For the first time in its 6,000-year history, the ancient magical techniques of invoking fallen demonic angels and killing someone using the evil eye were put down on paper. The Kabbalistic writings of Isaac the Blind fell into the hands of a group of 9 French noblemen. These noblemen became known as the Knights Templar. The word Cabal, meaning a group who conspire together, comes from the word Kabbalah. One such cabal, who were to later inspire a whole armada of black magic cults and Freemasonry, were the so-called Knights Templar. They laughingly called themselves the Poor Knights of Christ, but these men were far from poor. They deliberately styled themselves as monks so that they could go about their Luciferian Kabbalistic studies and conduct business without being taxed nor arouse suspicion from the Vatican. The Kabbalistic higher secrets of ritual sodomy, the evil eye, chanting incantations, necromancy, blood sacrifice, and invoking the fallen angels in service to Lucifer fascinated the French Knights Templar. They realized that the Kabbalah originated in Palestine, and once they had realized that the Kabbalah was the key to untold spiritual magical power, they cunningly planned a bloody crusade to Palestine in order to search for more Kabbalistic and magical artifacts. They eventually discovered and looted the Temple of Solomon. Solomon was a biblical magician king who is accredited with inspiring large parts of the corpus of works we now know as the Kabbalah. The Knights Templar arrived in Palestine with one main goal: to stop the Muslims from gaining any knowledge about the Kabbalah. Historical Islamic oral accounts from the 12th century testify to a sickening crusade of plunder, torture, murder, and sexual depravity. The Knights Templar, once they had discovered the magical teachings of the Kabbalah, were dedicated utterly to destroying its origins so that they might hold its secrets exclusively.
And it's in the Kabbalah and the Talmud. And properly practicing Jews, I'm not including them, they follow the Torah. The Talmud and the Kabbalah are satanic.
The Babylonian
cults.
Talmud, is
Yes,
that what it is?
yes.
Okay.
Those are satanic cults.
And are those satanic cults controlled, or were they created by these ancient Iranian bloodlines?
Yes, they were.
Please expand.
For instance, the Aldobrandini is one of the ancient Iranian bloodlines. It's a famous Italian family. And Al-Dob, Al is the, Dob is devil, Dini
The people of the devil.
Yeah, the people of the devil.
Wow.
Seed equals what? Genetics. And so here's what God said in Genesis 3. The Lord said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman. Who? The serpent and the woman. And between thy seed. Now who is her seed? It's Christ. And us. But it's Christ, right? Literally? Was Christ born of a woman? Literally. Then why isn't this literal? It is. The seed of the serpent is always recognized in the Bible by being called children of Belial. Here it is. Certain men, children of Belial, sons of Belial, children of Belial, sons of Belial, the sons of Belial as thorns. What was the ground cursed with? What did Jesus wear on his head? What was Paul? A messenger of Satan, an angel of Satan to buffet him. What was it? It was the son of Belial. Children of Belial, ye are of your father the devil. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, thou child of the devil. Is this just simply metaphorical language meant to draw us into imaginations? No. God is telling you that there's a war going on between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. You believe it or not. You ever seen this symbol before? In its simplest form, it's called the Star of David. David doesn't have a star. You will not find the Star of David mentioned anywhere in the Scriptures. Will you? And by the way, did God ever tell us to draw out symbols of Him? Images. He said stay away from them, didn't He? So I think we ought to. So let me show you what this means. This is pointing up like the square in the compass. Notice the opposites here. White, dark. White, dark. Up, down. Sons of God, daughters of men. This is the secret. They are mingling themselves with the seed of men. See this serpent around this with his tail in his mouth? See that? That's called the Ouroboros. Guess what it means? This is, they call it a secret of immortality. The symbol of immortality. The symbol of eternal life. Now that doesn't look like salvation to me, does it? By the way, that's a dragon, a serpent. The devil does not have the key to immortality, although he tried to tell Eve that he had it. Ye shall not surely die. He tried to tell her that she would live forever if she listened to him and not her husband, whose name was Adam, who is a picture of Jesus Christ. Get it? So guess what this means? Albert Pike says, the mouth of the dragon represents the woman, open. The tail represents the male. This is the earth. This is the heavenly. Sons of God mingle with the daughters of men. How many of you see that? Wow. This symbol is described as has a strong relation to what is known as the androgyny. You know what androgyny is? It's a combination of male and female in one body. Sons of God, daughters of men. The androgyny is united male and female principles together. This is the primordial end to the human endeavor. Did you get that? This is where they say mankind is headed in his next phase of evolution. He is headed toward the day where he is sons of God mingled with daughters of men. The fusion of the opposites, the heavenly realm and the earthly realm. The reunion which births totality and creation. It is not unlike the idea of androgyny, which is a duality complete, a return to wholeness. Here it is again. Sons of God, daughters of men. Sons of God, daughters of men. Look at that. We're going to find out what that means in a little bit.
And you have seen base metal turn to gold.
I promise you, Governor, that the art of alchemy brings a wondrous transformation.
You must hold this occupation most secret. Tell none but those of us that are here tonight. We would not wish to stir up unnecessary excitements amongst the settlers.
I've never heard a man say he hankers to bear a babe before.
I meant it.
I do believe you. There's been times I wished I was a man, but I've never heard men wish to be women.
I do not wish to be a woman, Mistress Shara. Gentlemen, our calling today is the science of God. So we must set out the room according to cosmic conjunctions. And then we will go about creating philosophic Mercury.
The Philosopher's Stone. Madam, this is not a matter for women.
Oh, but it is. The combination of substances and the union of opposites. The mystical marriage of the lunar femina and the solar masculine. This is the foundation of the mystery we pursue. So to the most vital aspect of what we conduct here, words cast to heaven that they might serve as invocations, feminine invocations. After calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, we stand between the sun and the moon, masculine and feminine. Bodies join into one.
Spirit above, matter below, fruits of sun and moon.
O pure self-moving source.
O pure self-moving source. O form, lift up the light so that all things unite.
The elixir, prima materia.
I have heard it said that alchemists deliberately fail, let themselves be seen as hopeless frauds to dissuade those hungry to believe, thus keeping their true miracles to themselves.
There is deceit, sir, but not in order to rob those anxious for gold, rather to conceal the true purpose of this marvelous art. The transformation of man. Let me show you. I can, if a woman I be.
Do you claim, sir, to be transformed from a man to a woman by the process of alchemy?
What stands before you, Governor, is the living, breathing, quicksilver proof that true art is not cheap riches, but the miracle of human metamorphosis.
Dr. Priestley will require an examination.
Is it possible, Doctor?
It appears the simian peck has a dual nature.
She's a woman and a man.
Then you might wear your dress, sir. Madam, but you will no longer practice alchemy in Jamestown.
So they're definitely satanic. They're proud of it. They're open about it. We have a website, laurenmoret.info, and we have a Rothschild ball with photographs of the Rothschilds and their guests and members of their family doing satanic practices.
This is the masked ball photos?
The masked ball.
And by the way, they're called Venetian masks, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Right.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we can see the cultural and the historical continuities, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so what they just described is precisely what the Bible says. It's exactly what the Bible says. So we have the head of gold. This is how Babylon started. The fallen angels, they came straight from heaven. The head of gold. Then it was the Persian Empire, and that's Iran today. So when we are talking about this end-time Aryan race, we're not talking like they teach us in mainstream, like, oh, it's white supremacy, white supremacy. No, the Aryan race, they don't want us to identify them. That is the New World Order. That is the Illuminati bloodlines. Persia. So is it any wonder that Russia is allied with Iran? Is it any wonder that Obama siphoned off $400 million out of our paychecks from American taxpayers and sent $400 million in cash on an airplane to Iran? Is it any wonder that they cut off our own homegrown oil supply so that we have to import from the Aryan Empire? I mean, is it any wonder? No, it's not. And I hate to cut this short because I wanted to keep it an hour and a half, and now I'm pushing 2. But I really fear that I won't be able to upload it if I make it any larger than 2. So I wish that I could give you the load of evidence that backs this up. But suffice it to say for now, yes, the Babylonian Empire, Mystery Babylon, this is how it goes down through the ages, throughout all of time. So we have the head of gold, and then, yeah, it started with Persia, the Aryan race. And it went down, just like they said, into Rome. It went through Greece, and it transpired exactly as she just pointed out, that the Persians created the Italian cities that later became known as the Roman Empire. So Romans are Persian. Italians, the Italian mafia, the Sicilian mafia, they are Persian. And China as well. I'll show you that in part 2, how it absolutely goes into Asia. This is one family. And when it goes through Greece, you know, that's where we get most of our government structure for Congress and everything. But I do want to point out real quick here for the segue that it is also where we get the word Tartarus or Tartarians, the Tartarians, right? Like she just said, that these people are Satanists. They are open about it in their names. Just track the meaning of their names.
And Al-Dob, Al is the, Dob is devil. Dini. Al-Dob,
the people of the devil.
Yeah, the people of the devil.
Wow.
So they're definitely satanic. They're proud of it. They're open about it.
And of course, Tartarus is spoken of repeatedly in the Holy Bible. In fact, the word hell in English, that's actually Tartarus. Literally. It's a literal translation from the word Tartarus in 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. That verse right there, the word hell, is translated directly from the word Tartarus. It's another one of these biggest secrets hidden in plain sight, that the Tartarians, there's a reason why they've scrubbed them from the internet, or scrubbed them from history. They just erased them because they don't want us to know who's running the world. But we still have all of the other texts. They couldn't just white it out, just blank out the entire world. So yeah, we know that, you know, in ancient Greece, there are records of the underworld. In ancient Egypt, they record the underworld and who reigns there. They'll tell you verbatim who reigns there. All of the Indian pagan gods and all of that, they talk openly about the underworld. Take like Phil Schneider, you get into anything about the UFOs and everything, it always leads you to the underworld, the underground military bases. The Nazis, they're working with someone in the underworld under Antarctica. Donald Marshall, you get into the cloning labs and, you know, all of this stuff that is going on, where do you say? In the underworld, underground somewhere. Even when we talk about organized crime, when we talk about the mafia, what do we call them? The underworld. All of the black market trafficking of everything, not just humans, but everything. The black market's the mafia. We call these surface dwellers that are doing all of the evil on the earth and have basically taken over. The crime syndicate has taken over. We still call them the underworld. And there's a reason for that. Remember how she just said They're proud of it. Their names mean it. These are the descendants of the Satanic Empire.